those type of people cannot give the country 100% because they are not 100% Nigerians.
Well,
anyway.
I disagree with you.
Okay.
On that score. I mean, any other thing...
Because you are one of them anyway.
I told you not to go there. Now you've gone there.
Okay.
But the point is that, no. I mean, I think the real issue here is whether there is an infraction on the federal character constitutional provisions of this country. And you have provided evidence that seems to support that fact. But let me ask you something else, because you are a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You're a lawmaker. And part of what is involved in being a lawmaker is making just and equitable laws. It's not just a law, because I mean, if you look at it from a different perspective, people have a right to oppose a law that is not just, if it is shown not to be just. I mean, should it really matter where someone comes from as long as they are capable and competent in the job that they are chosen to do?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, I stood in support of that. I support the president getting, even if it is an expatriate, to occupy a certain position as long as it doesn't infract
on the Constitution.
On the Constitution.
Right.
But what he's doing now infracts on the Constitution. And worst of it, so far, not all, but so far, majority of those that are given those responsibilities are not discharging their so-called...
So you question their competence as well?
Yes, I did before.
You're right.
So and I still stand on it.
Right.
Because we haven't gotten to where, or there's no kind of ray of hope in the country under the leadership of those.
So let me be clear.
Now let me give you...
Yeah, okay.
For how many years? All we hear is, endure, it will be okay, it will be okay, and it's 2 years. And now, the main purpose of government is clearly stated in Section 14. Security, welfare of its citizens, and of course, other things that follow in Section 14 of our Constitution. We are far from most of them, especially the issue of security and welfare of citizens. There's no amount of this hullabaloo that they are doing out there that if the president doesn't do something to make Nigerians feel and see, not to just hear and these figures turning out. No. There's this Hausa saying that if you tell a dog that there's party in their house at home, he would ask you to let me see it. And that means let him see that the party is going on by maybe getting bones or the meat or something. But when you say things are all right, and Nigerians are still out there yearning that things are tough, and you know things are tough. You yourself know that.
Well, let's turn to...
Ndume calling to question the competence of Tinubu's appointees. I mean, it should all call, majority of them, call to question their competence. Was it not just yesterday? One of them was on, I think it was on Arise with the Sheung, and he said, I'm talking about Tokwe Pashua, right? The one that said, you can eat with 1,500 naira in Nigeria, but you cannot eat with $10 in America. And people have been kind of like calling him out. What is wrong with this one? How can in America, do you know the minimum wage in America? Do you know this or that? Do you know that those who are unemployed, even in America, as Americans, in America, they still get state support. They have access to, people should have been like, the way they don't go to Arise News again today. This time, he has doubled down, but he has increased it to 2,500 naira, in which many people are actually questioning they're questioning the state of mental health of Tokwe Pashua. They're like, have you become so blinded? Right? Well, the same guy who pretended to be on the side of the poor people or ordinary people, just about 5 years ago or 6 years ago, where you wanted to be president too. Like, what the heck? Was that all just like, you know, a drama or a make-believe kind of a thing? Because how detached or how far detached do you think you are to not understand the cries of the people, right? Apart from the fact that cost of living, you know, is like, you know, killing them, fine. So even come by anything that is going to give you a steady income of, to be able to even afford that 1,500 naira, it is that bad. But you're so detached that he has increased it now to 2,500 naira. I said, there are places you can eat with 2,500 naira in Lagos. So things are not really great, but at least it's not that bad too. That's what he's saying. So yeah, I would call to question the competence and including mental health of those who are with Tinubu, if you can see one of them.
Understandably, you have a lot to say, a lot to say on this topic. You know, you speak about these gains, but here we are talking about the average citizen, the common man. Yeah. And that's why we refer back to that conversation about the PPP and a meal for $1, because we're taking this conversation back to the majority of Nigerians. Yeah. Now, since we want to use economic terms here and we want to have let's have, because you said that it was an elevated economic conversation that you had, where you said in Nigeria $1 is still enough for a meal. Well, in the same Nigeria in 2022, the GNI coefficient, which I'm sure you're aware of, the measure of inequality in a country, for those who may not be aware, with 0 being perfect equality and 100 being highly unequal. 2022, before this administration came in, it sat at 35.1. By 2023, the end of 2023, after this administration and its reforms came in, it now plummeted to 48.9%, meaning that we can justify all of these reforms and the petroleum sector is working, whatever. But the truth on the ground is that the disparity between the 10% of Nigerians who are holding on to over almost 40% of the wealth of the country and the other 50% who only own 20%. Yeah. No. You're saying that this administration has come in with reforms that have created such economic breakthroughs.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Don't misquote me. I didn't say. I said, look, I said there's a medium to long-term plan. So
we can accept that in the midterm we have plunged people into poverty.
Part of what
in the short term,
I also mentioned
in Nigeria.
I mentioned the US, for example, which is
in Nigeria.
In every country in the world,
the US does not have the level of inequality that Nigeria does.
I think you should check. The US Gini coefficient is at least 51%.
It is not.
I did my research. I even wrote an article on this. You know, I was going to ask you where your number came from.
World
because
Bank.
I was, okay, World Bank, either World Bank or CIA, let's know. You know, but the point is that Nigeria had always been around 35, and Nigeria was one of the least unequal countries in Africa. The worst country in inequality being South Africa. Even in South Africa, which was standing at about 62%, it has got worse.
But do these countries not have, but they have social security nets. In the United States, you can go to the hospital.
That the government,
you can go to
Dr.
school.
Abati mentioned.
So can I go to the hospital?
Absolutely.
For free?
Depending on where you live,
treated?
Absolutely. You can in Nigeria.
School?
Health is free. School is
Running
free.
water?
You know, you went to a private school.
Running water?
Reckon. Now, probably not even in Nigeria. You know, we have our challenges anyway. But you know, let's and this takes me back to the issue of 1,500. Remember, please, and please. As against those who have been misquoting and sensationalizing and all, nobody is saying there's no poverty in Nigeria. In fact, luckily for me, I got people sending me videos from Lagos to Maiduguri showing that they actually ate for 1,500 yesterday. If you're earning minimum wage and you're struggling in life, you know, you have to make choices like that. In fact, I personally was somewhere in Lekki yesterday, precisely Black Bell. I saw that someone could eat for 2,500.
Black Bell.
2,500, even in Lekki Phase 1. You know, I mean, I didn't know where to go. Someone just took me there because I had another interview.
People can't afford that.
So yes, you know, people can't afford that. I agree, but I think that empirically speaking, my statement was correct because indeed people. And I said something. I said 1,500 is a lot of money to a lot of Nigerians, and that's because I acknowledge the fact that a lot of people are down on their luck and poor. So if saying 1,500 is a lot of money is not a mockery of those who see that as a lot. If you are leaving this place now and you gave the security guy 1,000 naira, he will appreciate you. He will have a meal on that. And that's what I'm saying, that a lot of Nigerians are in that category. And again, remember, I said my raison d'etre, my reason for shooting on this is to say that, listen, you know, the private sector and even the government sector must be put under pressure to understand that this inequality is increasing, okay, as against what it was before. In fact, the most equal country in Africa was Algeria. You go to Algeria, Tunisia, those guys seem to have a system that works for them. Egypt isn't doing as well. The most unequal being South Africa and Namibia, you know, where you see some very high, which compares with the United States of America. But we can't rest on our oars, Rotus. You know, we can't rest on our oars. We know there's a problem already because, again, post-COVID, and, you know, when something as cataclysmic as COVID happens, sometimes it takes 10, 20 years for you to come back to. We're hoping that the President Trump's experimental governance this time around will not set us back even further.
That's the topic for sure. As one of those who are well-paid mouthpieces for Kolu Tinubu, or talking about Trump, by the way. You've been hearing about Trump's tariffs this, tariffs that, you know, it's really, really a tough one, you know. It is like a wreck ball going through, you know, the hours or going through a whole mode. That's exactly what this time around America First of Donald Trump is like. He has put so many of the, you know, old-time American allies on these serious spots, you know, where, according to him, we have ripped Americans off for far too long. We didn't pay our dues, according to him. He said, you see, because businesses could access cheap labors abroad, right? And at the same time, you see, some of according to him, some of the American stuff, when they go to other countries, they get so tariffed, right? But the same thing is not applicable to other countries' stuff going into America. So in Donald Trump's way, and the Americans' deficit as it is, he has been, you know, dashing out tariffs, right? Like lollipops to different countries, okay? So that of Nigeria and how that really may affect you see, is this. In a layman way, because I want to explain it to you, if you are living in Nigeria, it is not like anybody would have to scare you with any hardship anymore. You're already going through it. But what this simply means is that in the long run, there are some certain things you should be aware of to remind you that there is no way out anytime soon. There may be as well, but I'm going to just do this in a layman, layman explanation. Okay. So tariff is like the the tax or the taxes that you apply to any product coming into your country. And people do this for so many reasons. For example, Nigeria is an import-dependent country. Nigerians are importing from all over the world. Now, I don't know if Nigeria operates based on their bilateral relationship with all these countries to determine how much they are going to charge you when you bring stuff into Nigeria. I do not know. But what I found out is that the way Nigeria operates, or Nigerian customs and all that operates, and Nigeria as a country, when it comes to importing stuffs into that country, there are so many stuff that have, as much as 85% kind of like taxes on them. They can call it excise, duties. They can call it custom. I think it's the same as custom and excise. Okay, custom and excise duties. West African ECOWAS, something tax as well. Like they shall have all those. So in the long run, right, it simply means that from my own findings, though, Nigeria currently applies averagely, right, about 54% tariff on what is being imported from America, but America said it's 27%. So Nigeria, by Donald Trump's announcement or pronouncement, Nigeria applies 27% tariff on American products. And Nigeria doesn't really produce anything to export, unfortunately for them. However, Nigeria has one major product to export, crude oil. And from what I have also found, America remains the biggest buyer of Nigerian crude oil. Now, this is now tricky, okay? If America, right? Nigeria sells our crude oil, and at the same time, Nigeria goes abroad to buy refined crude oil, like refined products, into the country. Until now, that you have Dangote that is also importing crude oil from America. So how does this 27% works? Sorry, 14% rather. So that simply means that, you see, any American company that is buying Nigerian crude oil, Brent crude, right? And then, exporting or importing them into America. So that simply means they would now have 14% tariff applied, right, to what it takes to bring it into America. And remember, America also happened to be one of the world's largest crude oil producer, just for your information. America, on the last check, by the way, America alone, they are producing more than 8 million barrels of crude oil every day in America, even though they are also still the biggest lifter and buyers of crude oil all over the world. I just don't understand how that would kind of like work for them. Anyway, so in America, some of this drilling of crude oil, which has kind of, encouraged environmentalists to campaign against, this fossil fuel, they call it, right? In America, before Trump, their governments kind of like banned fracking, crude oil stuffing to some extent, okay? So which reduced their oil production. To them, they're like, you are the United States of America. You can pump as many oil as you want, like 50 million barrels a day, 20 million barrels a day. So if that should be the case, what would then happen is that now that the crude oil price is already like crashing from about $86 to a barrel, now down to $64 to a barrel. Here you get. So with Donald Trump's tariff, would American buyers of Nigeria crude oil, would they still be willing to go bring crude oil from Nigeria to America? And would Nigeria reciprocate? For example, Dangote that is bringing crude oil from America to refine in Nigeria, is Nigeria government actually applying the 27% charges on that? And what about other American products like, these are personal stuffs now, like in fashion, alcohol, drinks, medicals, and all of that stuff, right? So I did my findings, and I'm just going to kind of give them this, like I said, averagely, each tax on imported stuff into Nigeria is somewhere around, 55%, they're about 52, 54%, okay? Meanwhile, on average, that's average, like if you have to put everything like, yeah? Meanwhile, on some imported goods into Nigeria, there are taxes as high as 80, 90%. In some cases, you have to like pay almost the same thing. For example, cars, you have to pay almost the same thing that you paid for the car in clearing the car in Nigeria. Here you go. So what does this mean in the long run? Here is Jumoke Oduwole, who happened to be Tinubu's Minister for Trade and Industry, right? How are they reacting to it? Let's listen.
Honourable Minister, thank you very much for your time. Let's jump straight into it. The United States has placed a tariff of 14% on Nigerian exports. In comparison to other countries, we are not the hardest hit, but this is still considerable. This is still noticeable, and it is expected that there is going to be some form of a relatively negative impact on Nigerian exports, on Nigeria's ability to be internationally competitive when it comes to the official position of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. What is your position? How are you feeling?
Yes, it's a long term.